Oh boy, here we go again. F1 rumors about a new race in the United States of America. Now, before you all panic or freak out and all of that, I want to start out this video by saying, like I said with the New York one, I don't think this is actually going to happen, but this one's a little different than the New York. The New York one was like, there's reports of it happening, that maybe they've talked once or something. This one, trademarks have been filed, so it's a little more documental. Is that a word? I don't know if that's a word. But Chicago, one of the biggest cities in the United States, one of the biggest markets in the United States, one of the biggest sports regions, sports cities in the United States, has been apparently a target of F1 in trademark talks. So let's actually look at the trademarks before I give my opinions and all that. This article from SB Nation talks about it a bit, and then we're going to talk about, obviously, this itself, F1 Chicago. Once again, I think it's unlikely, but if it were to ever happen, or to how it could happen. And then also, I'm going to talk about the NASCAR race that happened in Chicago. That was a street race as well. So this article kind of talks about the recent spike in popularity in the United States for F1, the added race in Miami, the other one in Vegas. And now we have 3 races in the United States, of course, the main one from Austin as well. So then it says, could Chicago be next? Astute observers noted a few trademark applications filed in the United States Patent and Trademark Office by the Formula One licensing BV. Those filings? Grand Prix of Chicago, Formula One Grand Prix of Chicago, Chicago Grand Prix, Formula One Chicago Grand Prix. Here's a screenshot of the actual thing. Somewhere in this article, I'll put the link of the article in the description. There's a link inside the link to the actual trademark filing because it's public information, something like to that extent. I got to admit, I don't know every single law. Okay, I'm not a lawyer. I talk about racing on the internet. There's a big difference, believe it or not. Now, it talks about later in the article, this is not a home run, that there's going to be an F1 race in Chicago next year or 2 years from now or even 5 years from now. There could never be a race in F1 in Chicago. It could be as much as just, looking at Chicago as a city and being like, hey, what if we want to essentially put an F1 race in Chicago, a street race in Chicago? What if we want to start rotating street races, if Miami starts to not work out as good as we thought, we start rotating Miami, Chicago, New York as street races every 3rd year. You get your street race. Chicago is now on the F1 rotation on the calendar. So they could just be kind of looking way out in the future as a what if, it's a long shot, but we got to be prepared for it. And they're just filing this trademark because they don't want some bozo out there just going and filing a trademark for a city in Grand Prix or Formula One Grand Prix. And, that's actually not a bad idea. I gotta make some phone calls real quick. Yeah. Tom, I think I got an idea that's gonna make us millionaires. Okay, that might not be the smartest idea ever. Might not even be legal. So for legal reasons, that was a joke. But as I said, it could just be, let's just go ahead and get trademarked, copyrighted, whatever we need to do, just in case this situation does rise, that we want to go to Chicago for a race. Now, once again, I don't think this is going to happen. And if it does happen, we're talking more than a decade ahead of time. We're talking beyond 2035, okay? Vegas is locked up for 10 years. Miami's got another 8 years on their contract. COTA, that's only through 2026, so that would be the one at risk, which I honestly would hate to see. COTA is a fantastic racetrack. It's great for racing in F1 and NASCAR, which is very impressive if you ask me. There's a racetrack that can do that. That's no disrespect to either motorsport. I'm just saying, there's different aspects of racetracks that, some tracks fit F1 better, some tracks fit NASCAR better. And in this case, it fits them both. Like, we don't see that a lot. I get we don't see them racing at the same tracks all the time, but once again, I'm going off point. But it could potentially just be, this grab to make sure you get it. But as I said, F1 is moving a lot towards street circuits. I've been wanting to make a video about if I were to make the calendar in F1, and I keep pushing it back. This month might be the month. No promises, but I'm going to look into it. This month could be the month I finally do that video, but Look at the trend of the past few years. Now, we first saw it with Azerbaijan. I don't know if that's when we first really saw it, but, Monaco's been a street circuit on the calendar forever, for as long as F1's been around, basically. That's been a historic race. But then we saw Azerbaijan. That was added in 2016. And, it was fine. We've seen other random street races. What was it? Valencia back in 2012. But in the past 5 years, we have seen the street circuit number just completely spike up. We've seen Miami added, which is technically a street circuit, but it's kind of really just a parking lot. Vegas was added, which is a true street circuit through the streets of Las Vegas. Madrid is going to join the calendar in 2026, a street circuit in Madrid. There were plans for a street circuit, I think in Qatar maybe. I think there was one plan for Russia back before Russia got kicked off the calendar. There has been a lot more additions of street tracks. F1 seems to love this street track idea, to be going through the streets of a big city that everyone knows about. Madrid, Vegas, Miami, wherever it may be. F1 right now is in their street circuit obsession. They look, I get that money runs everything, and money is the big key here for F1. And whenever they see money, they're going to go, ooh, money, give me. But the fact of the matter is, a lot of F1 fans want classic permanent circuits back that have been lost over the years. And there are even some that are still on the calendar today that are at threat. Some that don't have long contracts left on their contract life. I guess that's the proper phrasing. I don't think Spa has a long contract right now. Monaco, I think, just inked a new contract extension the past few years, but I don't know how long that is. So some of these long-time historic circuits, they are, almost at risk, it feels like, at the cost, at the expense of these new street circuits, which is what is rubbing fans the wrong way. Now, once again, if you're going to do something with Chicago, I think you got to rotate it in with like Miami. In my calendar, there's only 2 U.S. races. I'm from the U.S., and I think 2 races here is enough. I think 3 is too many, and I personally would axe Miami, but I also am biased towards Austin because I live like 4 hours away from Austin, and Vegas because I like Vegas. So maybe I'm biased. Once again, I'm getting off topic, but the point being, F1 has been going towards the street circuits, which is turning off some of the old style fans or older fans, whatever you want to call it. But there are also newer fans like myself, younger fans like myself, who enjoy a good permanent circuit. Monza, as I listed earlier, Spa, Coda is a great track. Interlagos. I don't want to see some of these tracks go at the expense of a Madrid street race, Miami, Chicago. But once again, money rules everything, and there has been a street race in Chicago recently. Last year, NASCAR debuted its Chicago street race, first ever street race in NASCAR history. Now, it had some issues, yes, kind of like Vegas, locals. There was a ton of traffic, construction all the time. It was a busy part of the city, and, it did cause some issues. But it had its success as well. There was a pretty good fan turnout. A lot of fans from a lot of different areas, not just the United States, but the world came to the race. An international driver won in his first race. The race itself was actually really good. Now, that's just my opinion. And once again, there was a pretty positive reaction to this race after there was some controversy, negativity towards it before. But once the race happened, everyone's like, that was actually kind of a good race. The people at the track were like, hey, I actually kind of enjoyed myself. New fans showed up. I mean, it was pretty good. Chicago has experience in the 21st century. It's not like they did a street race in 1984 like Dallas did, and, it's not going to be the same thing. They've done something this century. Now, I don't think they'd use the same track. They might use the same track if they were to do this race. But point being, Chicago does have experience with a street race. They do have experience with racing. So, there is something there if that means anything to them. Now, to wrap this up once and for all, I know I've been talking a lot. I've gone off track a lot. But in conclusion, this is not a done deal. This is not even a proposed idea yet. All that's happened is that trademarks have been filed for the F1 Chicago Grand Prix, the Grand Prix of Chicago, the F1 Chicago race, whatever the other ones were. And it could just be F1 looking 10, 20, 30 years down the road, preparing themselves if the situation arose. Now, there's also the possibility that they are legitimately looking at, having this thing happen within the next decade or so. There's a lot of question marks. Nothing is set in stone. I gave you my opinion. My honest opinion is kind of chill out on the street races. We've got them, and don't get me wrong, there's some good street races. Baku's had some great races. Vegas, the first race there was fantastic. But don't overdo the street races, And as for the permanent circuits, I don't want to see a Chicago race show up and replace Spa, replace Monza, replace, some iconic traditional circuit that F1 fans love. So I don't want to see that. But once again, I don't make the decision. So once again, in conclusion, I don't think it's going to happen, but F1 did actually take some action on trademarks, on making something happen with Chicago in terms of the trademarks. And then also, just in my opinion, I don't think it's going to happen. But if it did, I don't want it to be at the expense of an old track. So, if you want my full opinion on the schedule, then I will make my own schedule for F1 one of these days. Hopefully this month, the last month of the off season. If I do, I'll let you know in the community post. So check that out, and I will let you guys see that eventually. But thanks for watching this video. Hope you enjoyed it. I know this is not a hard news story. This is not like legit news yet. It's just a rumor. It's just a report as of now. But I thought it was an interesting topic. Thought we'd talk about it. I hadn't made a video in a couple days. It's been a couple weeks since I made an F1 video. So figured I'd do that because all the other news in F1 was at like 2 a.m. for me with Leclerc and Norris's contract extension. So, here we are. So thanks again for watching. Tomorrow we're going to talk about NASCAR paint schemes, or as you people everywhere else, Europe, Asia, Africa, South America, as you would say, liveries. So NASCAR cars are getting released. We know what they look like now, so get yourself a good look at that. We've already done one video. We're going to do a second. So thanks again for watching. Hope you have a great rest of your day, night, or morning, wherever you are.